Hi friends. So today maybe we could talk a little bit about gone fishing or going fishing. I don't know about you, but has there ever been times in your life where you have gone fishing away from your relationship with Christ, or just gone fishing away from a really deep, satisfying, intimate, engaged, involved relationship with Christ? Another way of saying is that there ever been times when you've run away from God and what it is that you think He's expecting of you? Uh, I have, and there have been times, moments, even seasons when I have felt like that. You're not alone, because apparently this is something of what Peter went through after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And all we have to do is look at some of these post-resurrection accounts in the Gospels, such as uh, in John 21, specifically chapter 21, starting with verse 1, going to verse 14. So you know the scene. The scene is where Peter, and at the end of this passage, it says, by the way, John says that this is the third time that Christ had appeared to the disciples. So already two times before this, Christ had appeared to some of his disciples. Therefore, they know that he has resurrected from the dead. Like everything that he said he was going to do, he did. But here's Peter saying to some of the other disciples, I'm going fishing. And some of the others said, well, we're going to go join you. What's going on here? They're going back to their lives before they met Jesus. Because remember, it was on this very lake, this Sea of Galilee, that Peter first met Jesus. And what was he doing? He was fishing. Taking care of himself, taking care of his family, his livelihood, just living the life, doing the trade, day by day. And when he does this, he encounters Jesus, and Jesus says, I'm going to make you a fisher of men. And Peter picks up and leaves everything to follow Jesus for the next 3 years of his ministry. Now, Jesus has gone through his suffering, his passion, his death, his resurrection. And again, he's appeared to Peter and the other disciples at least twice. But here's Peter going back or wanting to go back to the old ways. We just have to ask that question, why? But we also have to notice that, remember that Peter is the head of the disciples. Remember that passage in Matthew 16 where Jesus turns to Peter and says, you're the rock, and upon you I'm gonna build my church. And he gives him that authority. And all of the other disciples in that passage and other passages recognize that Peter's the head. So there's something that just needs to be observed here about Peter being a leader and us being leaders. And when we go away from God, we bring others with us, right? Especially if we have that leadership, like a mom or a dad over their children, or a pastor over his congregation, or a boss over his staff, or a leader of a sports team, or the person in the Bible study or in a group of friends who just has those natural leadership skills, and everybody kind of looks to you in those capacities. Or turn it around and say, who are the leaders in your life, and are you just kind of following them based upon whatever influence that they have over you? Because this is kind of what's going on with Peter, is he exits stage right, and at least that's what it appears to be. And so do at least 6 other disciples with him go fishing. Now what happens next is very important. So they go fishing, and they fish all night long, and they catch nothing. So what's going on here? Isn't this kind of John saying that these are when we live our lives separate from Christ and his mission, we're really not going to be able to accomplish what it is that we hope to accomplish. And not only in the sense of being Christian and accomplishing the mission, but also just our day-to-day living. We're not going to be able to really do it the way we need to be able to do it separate from Christ. And that's exactly what happens with Peter and the group of his friends, is that they fish all night long. And by the way, that's when you catch fish in Lake Galilee. Because of the heat of the day, it's just too much. So they fish overnight. The best time to fish, and they caught 0 fish. Now what happens next is very interesting, because this is where John picks up that Jesus is along the seashore. He's along the shore there, and he's looking at all of this. And he's just kind of letting it happen, right? He's observing his disciples who have exited from the mission, and he's letting this kind of play all out so they can see that when they go back to their lives prior to Jesus and just kind of try to live their lives on their own, this is what's going to happen. They're not going to be able to even catch fish, let alone be fishers of men and women. So Jesus then calls out to Peter and the rest of them, and he doesn't say, hey guys, have you caught anything to eat? He says, children, have you caught anything to eat? Because isn't that exactly what's going on here? I mean, like children, like, adolescents, they're thinking they can do it on their own. And don't we act like that sometimes? Don't we as Christians act like children, adolescents? And we think that we know better than God. We know a better way than God, or we're just going to do it my way rather than God's way. And we go fishing, right? But when we do that, we're going to end up just like Peter and the rest. and God just kind of patiently waiting along the seashores of our life, the shoreline, and watching us make our mistakes and watching us try to do it on our own until we get to the point where we realize he's the Lord and we run to him. And that's exactly what happens next. But a little thing happens here in between that. So, children, have you caught anything? No, we haven't caught anything. We've been fishing all night. Well, okay, well, go ahead and just put the net along the right side of the boat, and you should be able to catch what you need. I mean, they've been fishing all night long, which means that they've been casting their nets on the right and the left. And so this stranger, because they don't recognize this as Jesus yet, says to them from the shoreline, who doesn't have a boat, who doesn't look like he's a fisherman, hey, try it just one more time, even though it's daytime and it's starting to get hot and the fish are not on the, closer to the top. Just go ahead and throw it off to the side and you should catch all you need. So they must have been looking at one another going, who is this guy? But they do it. They're obedient. And in their obedience, they catch the mother lode. And it's at that point of this kind of miraculous intervention that John yells out to Peter and the rest, it is the Lord. So God, what's he doing? He's showing them that with me, you can get everything that you need. And not only everything that you need in order to accomplish my mission, but even just to kind of take care of yourself with me, you're going to be able to get what you need. And that's something that we really need to remember. Peter jumps in the water, swims right to Jesus, which I just love about Peter is this, impulsiveness. He just, as soon as he knows it's the Lord, he just, with all of his passion, with all of his energy, just goes running to the Lord. Now, a little detail here that can often be overlooked is that when Peter arrives on the shoreline, Jesus has a charcoal fire. ready for him and the rest of the apostles. And he's already, in fact, got some fish and some bread cooking up for breakfast. This little, again, detail from John's gospel, which we just could maybe just gloss over, we have to go to. When's the last time that Peter was by a charcoal fire? It's just a few days ago. And it was on the night that Jesus was betrayed and handed over to the leaders and ultimately put on a mock trial, and he died on a cross. And during that time, Peter was warming himself by a charcoal fire and denying that he ever knew Jesus. So this is more than a little nod by Jesus himself to Peter. Because Peter must have walked up to Jesus and seen that charcoal fire and that flood of memories, right? When I was by a charcoal fire, I denied that I ever knew Jesus. And here I am doing it again. Gone fishing. And basically denying that everything that Jesus taught me, everything that he did, everything that he that we saw him witness in his power, it's like it's nothing to me. And Jesus has this charcoal fire not to throw it in Peter's face and make him just wallow in his guilt and his shame, but to say, I'm feeding you by this charcoal fire. Like, you've denied me, and I'm not going to punish you for this. I'm going to feed you. How beautiful this must have been for Peter, seeing Jesus with this charcoal fire. Now, another little detail that's important that we may not know the meaning of is that as soon as Peter has this little encounter with Jesus by the charcoal fire, then he says, hey, bring some of your fish that you've caught and we'll cook it up. And so Peter goes and helps the rest of the guys who have now landed on the shore to haul in these 150 big fish, 153 big fish. What does that mean? Well, there's been a lot of commentary by people up and down the ages of what 153 means. You know, pretty important people like Augustine and Cyril of Alexandria and St. Jerome, who translated the scriptures for us. I think Jerome's explanation in the 4th century is probably one of the best. He said that at the time of Jesus, there was believed to be 153 different species of fish. That's all that they thought. For the Jews, that is, in the area that they lived in. And that they thought there was 153. And this makes sense, right? I mean, just on a timetable, Jerome was close to the time of Jesus. And in fact, remember that he went to Bethlehem for several years in order to translate the scriptures. So he was very familiar with the Jews and the Jewish ways, and the way that they looked at history, or the way they understood fish, right? So this makes sense too, because remember that when Jesus called Peter and the rest, he said after the great multiplication of the fish, when Jesus first met Peter and called him, to follow him, that he said, I'm going to make you fishers of men. So when Peter and the rest were trying to do fishing on their own again and caught nothing, and Jesus said, follow my instructions, and they did, they caught 153 fish. Those fish represent all of humanity. If they represent all the species of fish that were known to the Jews at the time, this is again Jesus saying to Peter and the rest, with me, you can catch all of the known fish in the world. But remember, I made you fishers of men. So if I can help you catch all of the known species of fish in the world, I can help you catch all of the men and women of this world. So that's what that 153 means. I want to go back to the charcoal fire and kind of end with that. Maybe one of the reasons why Peter went and gone fishing, went back to fishing and led some of the other apostles is precisely because of what happened to him at that first charcoal fire. Maybe he was ashamed. Even though he had experienced the resurrection of Christ at least twice before this third encounter, maybe he was just so filled with guilt and remorse and regret and just thinking to himself, because I've done this, I'm not worthy of being a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm not worthy of the mission of Jesus. I'm not worthy to lead other people to Jesus. And so on with that kind of stinking thinking that comes out of our sins, that comes out of our faults and our failings and mistakes that we make, the times that we deny Jesus. And maybe that's the reason why he had gone back fishing again, gone back to that lifestyle. And maybe the reason then too, why Jesus offers him a second encounter by a second charcoal fire is to say to Peter, I forgive you. I love you. And you are worthy of me and worthy of my mission. And I'm going to feed you right now with this little bit of fish and a little bit of bread. I love you. And even though you've once abandoned me, I'm not going to abandon you. And it should call, it should evoke from us, should elicit from us, what is your charcoal fire? What is it that you've done in your life or that you haven't done in your life? What is it that others have done to you or shouldn't have done to you or should have done for you that has caused you at times in your life to walk away from the Lord? What is your charcoal fire experience? Because we've all had those hurts in our life. We've all had sins in our life. We all have wounds that we think that are so deep or so long or so reoccurrent or so bad that we're not worthy of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. And we find ourselves then going back to our same sins or our same lifestyles or our same old ways of trying to do things on our own. While all the while desperate for the love of God and for the company of others, like Peter was. What is that charcoal fire? Because God has another opportunity, in fact, more and more opportunities to gather you around a different charcoal fire where he wants to feed you and he wants to be in company with you and fellowship with you, where he wants to offer you again his mission, where he wants to again say to you, I want to give you leadership. I want to give you my grace. I want to give you my life. I want to welcome you back into relationship with me. And how healing that must have been for Peter by that second charcoal fire with Jesus, to be welcomed again, to be known again, to be loved again. And then to see Jesus reaffirm his calling to be a fishers of men by catching precisely 153 fish. God wants to do this for us. So I don't think it's a matter of if there are going to be moments in my life where I'm going fishing. But when that happens, look to see why that happens. Where that comes from in your life. What is that charcoal fire experience, the first one that you've had, which is causing you to run away from the Lord rather than to run to him? When Jesus called out to Peter and the rest, and Peter and the rest were willing again to listen to him and to be obedient to his ways rather than their ways, to do it his way and with them rather than their way and separate from them, great, phenomenal things happened in their life. And they went from trying to, again, do it on their own to doing it the way the Lord had called them to do it. And they were able, and God was showing them that with me, you can catch all kinds of other people. And that's why we're in this relationship with God, right? Is to be caught by him, to be called by him, to be called into mission with him, and to see the incredible things that he can do and will do and is doing in our life, to remind us of all the ways in which he's already worked in our life, to heal us and to call us to that second charcoal fire, or that third, or that fourth, or however many it takes for us to finally realize that we need to do life with him, not separate from him. And with him, man, there's no limit of what we can catch in his name. Till next time, friends.